The screeching of tires and the sickening crunch of metal against metal cut through the peaceful Sunday afternoon, sending Daphne Carter's heart into her throat. She was crossing an intersection on her way home from the grocery store when she witnessed a black sedan spin out of control after being clipped by a speeding truck, the vehicle slamming into a light pole with devastating force. Without hesitation, Daphne dropped her shopping bags on the sidewalk and sprinted toward the smoking wreckage. The smell of gasoline and burning rubber filled her nostrils as she approached, her nursing instincts taking over despite the fear pumping through her veins. "Hello, can you hear me?" She called, peering through the shattered driver's side window. A man was slumped over the steering wheel, a thin trail of blood running down his temple. The airbag had deployed but didn't seem to have fully protected him from the impact. The car's frame had buckled inward, trapping his legs. When he didn't respond, Daphne tried the door. It was jammed. Panic rising, she noticed wisps of smoke beginning to curl from under the hood. "Someone call 911, she shouted to the growing crowd of bystanders, most of whom stood frozen, phones raised to record rather than help. Frustration surged through her as she grabbed a rock from a nearby landscaping display and smashed the already cracked window, clearing away the glass with her jacket sleeve. The man groaned as she reached in to check his pulse. Strong but irregular. He was regaining consciousness. "Sir, can you hear me? I'm Daphne. I'm a nurse. We need to get you out of here." His eyes fluttered open, startlingly blue against his blood-streaked face, and focused on her with confusion. "What happened?" he murmured. "Car accident. Your vehicle might catch fire." "I need to get you out, but you're trapped." She assessed his condition quickly, noting no obvious spinal injuries. "Can you move your legs?" he tried and winced. "Left one stuck, not broken." Daphne heard sirens in the distance but glanced worriedly at the increasing smoke. They might not have time to wait. Making a split-second decision, she reached across him to unbuckle his seatbelt, then began clearing the debris pinning his leg. The dashboard had crumpled, but she managed to create enough space for him to pull free with her help. "This is going to hurt," she warned, "but we need to move now." Together, they worked to extract him through the window, his tall frame making it an awkward process. Just as she helped him clear the opening, flames licked up from under the hood. With adrenaline-fueled strength, Daphne supported his weight as they stumbled away from the vehicle. They had barely made it 20 feet when the car erupted with a whoosh of flames. The force knocked them both to the ground, Daphne instinctively covering the stranger's body with her own to protect him from flying debris. When she looked up, paramedics were rushing toward them. "You saved my life," the man said, his voice hoarse but steady as they waited for medical attention. His eyes, those striking blue eyes, locked onto hers with intensity. "I'm Adam Iverson, Daphne Carter," she replied, suddenly aware of her racing heart. "Just doing what anyone would do." His laugh was bitter. "If that were true, I wouldn't have been trapped while people filmed for their social media." The paramedics reached them then, separating them to assess their injuries. Daphne had minor cuts on her hands from the glass and a bruised shoulder. Adam's injuries were more serious: a concussion, lacerations requiring stitches, and a badly sprained ankle. As they loaded him into the ambulance, he caught her hand. "Please, let me thank you properly when I'm out of the hospital." Before she could respond, a paramedic closed the ambulance doors, and Daphne was left standing on the sidewalk, watching the vehicle disappear into traffic, wondering if she'd ever see the mysterious Adam Iverson again. She didn't have to wonder long. 3 days later, as Daphne finished her shift at Memorial Hospital, she found an enormous arrangement of lilies and sunflowers waiting at the nurse's station. "Someone has an admirer," teased Tina, her colleague. "Daphne, read the card attached to the arrangement, to the guardian angel who pulled me from the flames. I still owe you that proper thank you. Dinner, Adam Iverson." A phone number was scrawled beneath his name. Daphne's pulse quickened. She hadn't been able to get those blue eyes out of her mind for days. "Who sent those?" asked Dr. Reynolds, passing by. "Just someone I helped after a car accident," Daphne replied. The doctor paused, eyebrows rising. "Adam Iverson sent you flowers. You know him." "Know him." Everyone in the business world knows him. He's the CEO of Iverson Technologies, worth billions. Dr. Reynolds shook his head. Didn't realize he was the accident victim from Sunday. Daphne felt her stomach drop. A billionaire, she had saved a billionaire. The information didn't compute with the bloodied, vulnerable man she'd pulled from the wreckage. Suddenly feeling self-conscious, she tucked the card into her pocket, uncertain whether to call, but curiosity won out. That evening, after a long shower to wash away the hospital's scent that always seemed to cling to her, Daphne dialed the number. Adam Iverson, he answered on the second ring, his voice deeper over the phone. It's Daphne Carter, from the accident. There was a moment of silence before he replied, I was hoping you'd call. His voice held a warmth that put her at ease despite her newfound knowledge about his status. They talked for nearly an hour. Adam asked about her nursing career, genuinely interested in her work at the hospital's trauma center. He told her about his recovery, the 12 stitches in his forehead, the concussion protocols, the physical therapy for his ankle. Not once did he mention his company or his wealth. When he again asked her to dinner, Daphne found herself accepting. Nothing fancy, she stipulated. I'm not a fancy restaurant kind of person. I know just the place, he promised. Daphne expected him to send a driver or at least arrive in a luxury car. But when Saturday evening came, she was surprised to see Adam himself standing on her apartment doorstep, leaning slightly on a cane. He wore simple dark jeans and a blue button-down that matched his eyes, the only hint of wealth the understated but clearly expensive watch on his wrist. You're walking, she observed, noticing his lack of crutches. Physical therapy is going well. Though my doctor would probably scold me for ditching the crutches this soon. His smile was warm as he added, I wanted to make a good impression. The cane adds character, she assured him, grabbing her jacket. He drove them himself in a modest SUV, explaining that his sedan had been slightly damaged in the accident, an understatement that made her laugh. They ended up at a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a neighborhood Daphne had never explored, where the owner greeted Adam with a bear hug. Marco, this is Daphne, the woman who saved my life, Adam introduced her. Marco kissed her hand with theatrical gratitude. Then you eat for free forever. Come, I have the perfect table. Over homemade pasta and rich red wine, Adam finally addressed the elephant in the room. So you found out who I am. It wasn't a question. Daphne twirled pasta on her fork. A doctor mentioned it. I don't follow business news. That's refreshing, actually. He looked relieved. Most people have preconceptions about me before we've even met. Well, my first impression was of you bleeding and unconscious, so I think we're past preconceptions, she said with a teasing smile. Adam laughed, a genuine sound that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Not my finest moment, though it did get me to meet you, so I can't complain too much. As dinner progressed, Daphne found herself increasingly drawn to Adam. He listened intently when she spoke about her patients or her struggles working in an understaffed hospital. He asked thoughtful questions. When he talked about his company, it was with passion for the medical technologies they were developing rather than pride in his success. I started Iverson Tech after my mother died of cancer, he explained. Our focus is on making advanced medical treatments more accessible and affordable. That's not what I expected, Daphne admitted. What did you expect? I don't know, something more. Greedy capitalist, he suggested with a wry smile, maybe. Their conversation flowed easily, and before Daphne realized it, 3 hours had passed. When Marco brought the check, Adam insisted on paying despite her protests. You saved my life, the least I can do is buy you dinner. So we're even now? She asked as they walked to his car. Adam stopped, turning to face her under the soft glow of a street lamp. The scar on his temple was still pink and new, a reminder of their unexpected meeting. Not even close, he said softly. I'd like to see you again, Daphne, not because I owe you, but because tonight has been the most normal, genuine interaction I've had with someone in years. The vulnerability in his admission touched her. I'd like that too. Their second date was a walk through the botanical gardens. Their third was a cooking class where they both failed spectacularly at making soufflés. By the fourth date, a local jazz concert in the park, Daphne knew she was falling for Adam Iverson, billionaire status aside. It wasn't until their sixth date that Adam kissed her, a gentle press of lips under the stars after he'd taken her stargazing in the mountains outside the city. His hands cradled her face as if she were something precious, and Daphne felt her heart soar. But as their relationship blossomed, complications emerged. Photographers started appearing when they went out. Adam's security detail became more visible. And Daphne's coworkers treated her differently once word spread about who she was dating. "I'm sorry about all this," Adam said one evening as they hurried through a restaurant's back exit to avoid paparazzi. "This isn't the life I wanted for myself, and it's certainly not what I want to subject you to." "It's not your fault," she assured him, though the constant attention was beginning to wear on her. Then came the day when a tabloid ran a headline questioning Daphne's motives. "Gold-digging nurse snares billionaire after heroic rescue." Daphne saw it while in line at the grocery store and felt physically ill. She purchased nothing, returning to her apartment in tears. When Adam called that evening, she didn't answer. She needed time to process the hurt and humiliation. He showed up at her door an hour later, concern etched on his face. "What happened? Are you okay?" Wordlessly, she handed him the tabloid. His expression darkened as he read it. "This is garbage, you know that, right?" When she didn't respond, he took her hands. "Daphne, look at me. Do you think for one second I believe you're after my money?" "Of course not," she said. "But it's what everyone else will think. It's what my coworkers probably already think." "Since when do you care what others think?" He squeezed her hands. "The woman who smashed a car window to save a stranger doesn't strike me as someone who worries about public opinion." Despite her mood, Daphne smiled. "That's different, is it?" Adam pulled her close. "The Daphne I know does what's right and what makes her happy, regardless of what anyone else thinks." They spent the evening curled on her couch, talking about their growing feelings and the challenges they faced. Adam promised to have his legal team address the tabloid's false claims, but he also acknowledged the reality of his public life. "It won't be the last time we face this kind of scrutiny," he warned. "I need to know if you can handle it, because I'm falling in love with you, Daphne Carter, and I don't want to lose you to something as trivial as public opinion." Her heart stuttered at his admission. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered, "and I'm tougher than I look." Their relationship deepened over the following months. Daphne grew accustomed to the occasional photographer, and Adam worked to maintain their privacy as much as possible. They found a rhythm that worked, spending quiet evenings at her apartment or his penthouse, and venturing out to smaller, less public venues when they wanted a night out. Then, 6 months after the accident that brought them together, Adam invited Daphne to join him at a charity gala for his foundation. "It's a big event," he warned. "Lots of press, lots of people who will want to meet you." "I'll be fine," she assured him, though privately she was terrified. Her experience with high society was non-existent. The night of the gala, Adam sent a stylist and makeup artist to help her prepare, along with a stunning emerald gown that complemented her eyes perfectly. When he arrived to escort her, his expression of awe made all her nervousness worthwhile. "You are breathtaking," he said, his voice husky with emotion. The gala was overwhelming, a sea of designer gowns, expensive jewelry, and influential people. Daphne clung to Adam's arm as he introduced her to business partners, philanthropists, and celebrities. She was surprised by how many of them already knew who she was. The woman who saved Adam Iverson, they'd say with varying degrees of admiration. She was chatting with a neurosurgeon about advances in trauma care when she overheard a conversation from a nearby group. "She certainly made the most of her 15 minutes of fame," a woman in diamonds commented. "From pulling him out of a car to wearing Harry Winston in half a year. Well played." "I heard she orchestrated the whole thing," another added. "The accident was no accident." Daphne felt her cheeks burn with humiliation and anger. Before she could react, Adam was at her side, his hand protectively at the small of her back. "Ladies," he said, his voice cold enough to freeze the champagne in their glasses. I couldn't help overhearing your fascinating theory. Would you care to explain how Daphne arranged for a drunk driver to hit my car? Or perhaps you'd like to share your thoughts with my legal team. They're quite interested in defamation cases these days. The women paled and muttered apologies before retreating. Adam turned to Daphne, concern in his eyes. I'm sorry you had to hear that. It's fine, she said, though it wasn't. I knew what I was getting into. But as the evening progressed, Daphne felt increasingly out of place. The wealth on display was staggering. The conversations centered around topics she knew nothing about, and the subtle looks of assessment she received made her skin crawl. By the time Adam finished his speech about the Foundation's work, she had retreated to a quiet corner, questioning whether she truly belonged in his world. Adam found her there, immediately sensing her discomfort. Let's get out of here, he suggested, but this is your event, you can't just leave. Watch me. He took her hand, leading her through a service exit to where his driver waited. Instead of returning to either of their homes, he directed the driver to take them to the beach. Despite the cool night air, they walked barefoot in the sand, Daphne's emerald gown hitched up in one hand, Adam's tuxedo jacket draped over her shoulders. I hate seeing you uncomfortable, Adam said as they stood watching the moonlight on the waves. I hate that my life puts you in these situations. It's not your fault, she began, but he shook his head. It is, in a way. I've worked so hard to build my company, to honor my mother's memory by making a difference in health care. But the side effect is this public persona that impacts everyone close to me. He turned to face her. I love you, Daphne, more than I thought possible, but I need to know if this life is something you can truly accept. Daphne considered his words carefully. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of emotions, the joy of falling in love, the stress of public scrutiny, the discomfort of navigating a world so different from her own. Yet through it all, Adam had remained the same genuine person she'd helped from the wreckage, kind, thoughtful, and surprisingly grounded despite his wealth. The gala was overwhelming, she admitted, and I don't think I'll ever be completely comfortable in that world. She took a deep breath. But I love you, Adam, the real you, not the billionaire CEO the world sees. If dealing with occasional galas and gossipy socialites is the price for being with you, it's one I'm willing to pay. Relief washed over his features. He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. Thank you for seeing me, he whispered. Just me. 2 weeks later, Daphne arrived at the hospital for her shift to find panic in the emergency department. A building collapse downtown had sent dozens of injured construction workers and bystanders to area hospitals. For the next 12 hours, she worked tirelessly alongside her colleagues, treating crush injuries, setting bones, and stabilizing patients for surgery. She was so focused on her work that she didn't notice Adam arrive with a team of people until the hospital administrator brought them to the emergency department. Mr. Iverson and his team are here with the mobile surgical units, the administrator announced, gesturing to the group. They'll be setting up in the parking lot to help handle the overflow. Adam spotted Daphne across the crowded ER and offered a quick smile before turning to direct his team. She watched in amazement as they efficiently began coordinating the establishment of state-of-the-art mobile operating rooms just outside the hospital. When she finally got a break hours later, she found Adam overseeing the transfer of a patient to one of the mobile units. What is all this? She asked when he finished. Iverson Tech's newest project, he explained. Mobile surgical units that can be deployed to disaster sites or overwhelmed hospitals. We've been testing them for months. He looked around at the organized chaos. I heard about the building collapse and knew this was where they were needed. Daphne felt a surge of pride watching him work. This was the man she loved, not the tuxedo-clad billionaire from the gala, but the passionate innovator using his resources to help others. For the first time, she fully understood why he had built his empire and what he was trying to accomplish with it. The crisis lasted 3 days, during which Daphne barely saw Adam despite his constant presence at the hospital. They were both too busy saving lives to do more than exchange exhausted smiles across crowded rooms. When the situation finally stabilized and the last of the serious cases had been treated, Daphne found Adam in the hospital cafeteria, slumped over a cup of coffee. "You look terrible," she teased, sliding into the seat across from him. "You look beautiful," he countered, his tired eyes lighting up at her presence. "Liar, I haven't showered in 2 days. Still beautiful." He reached for her hand. "Your administrator told me you haven't left the hospital since this started. Said you've been sleeping on a cot in the break room." "Neither have you," she pointed out. "Your mobile unit saved lives, Adam. At least 8 patients wouldn't have made it without immediate surgery." Pride flickered in his eyes. "That's why I do what I do, not for the money or the recognition, but for moments like this." They sat in comfortable silence, both too exhausted for much conversation. Finally, Adam spoke again, his voice soft but determined. "Watching you these past few days, your dedication, your compassion, I've never been more certain of anything in my life." He squeezed her hand. "I love you, Daphne Carter, and when we've both had about 20 hours of sleep and proper showers, I'm going to ask you to marry me." Daphne blinked, certain she'd misheard him through her exhaustion. "What? I was going to do this differently," he continued. "Romantic dinner, probably that beach we went to after the gala. I even have the ring in my safe. But seeing you in your element, watching you save lives with the same determination you showed when you saved mine, I couldn't wait." He gave her a tired smile. "So consider this your warning. Proposal coming after sleep." Tears filled Daphne's eyes as joy cut through her exhaustion. "In that case, consider this your warning that I'm going to say yes." True to his word, 3 days later, after they had both recovered from the crisis, Adam took Daphne back to the beach at sunset. He got down on one knee in the sand, presented her with a stunning but not ostentatious diamond ring, and asked her to be his wife. Through happy tears, she accepted. The media frenzy that followed their engagement announcement was intense. Daphne's history as the nurse who saved the billionaire made their story irresistible to the press. But this time, she faced the attention with confidence, secure in the knowledge that what she and Adam shared was real. They were married 6 months later, in a ceremony that balanced Adam's prominent status with Daphne's preference for intimacy. The guest list included hospital colleagues alongside business moguls, and the celebration focused on the foundation they had established together, one dedicated to providing emergency medical training and equipment to underserved communities. "From car crash to happily ever after," Adam mused as they shared their first dance. "Not the most conventional love story." "I wouldn't change a thing," Daphne replied, thinking of how far they had come from that smoking wreck of a car. 1 year to the day after the accident that brought them together, Daphne and Adam returned to the intersection where they first met. The light pole had been repaired, and there was no evidence of the crash that had changed both their lives. "I have something to tell you," Daphne said as they stood hand in hand at the spot. "Something that makes today even more special." Adam looked at her questioningly. She placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "We're going to have a baby." The joy that spread across his face was more beautiful than any sunrise Daphne had ever seen. Adam lifted her off her feet, spinning her around right there on the sidewalk where she had once dragged him from burning wreckage. "I saved you that day," she said when he set her down, "but you've been saving me every day since." "We saved each other," he corrected, kissing her tenderly. "And now we'll save the world, one medical innovation and one patient at a time, together." As they walked away from the intersection, arms around each other, Daphne reflected on the strange path that had led her here. One split-second decision to run toward danger instead of away from it had changed everything. She had saved a stranger from a car accident, not knowing the man was a billionaire who'd save her too, not with his money or his status, but with his heart, his vision, and the future they would build together. In the years that followed, their family grew to include 2 children, a daughter with her mother's compassion and a son with his father's innovative mind. Iverson Technologies expanded its focus on accessible healthcare, with Daphne heading a division dedicated to emergency medical training. The foundation they established saved countless lives around the world. But more important than their public accomplishments was the life they built together, a partnership founded in the most unexpected moment that grew into the kind of love that changes not just two people, but everyone they touch. And it all began with screeching tires, a smoking wreck, and a nurse who ran toward danger instead of away from it.